All right, let's talk about building a website. It can feel like some kind of magic trick, right? You start with a totally blank screen, and somehow it turns into something you can click on and use. But it's not magic at all. It's actually a lot like building a house. And today, we're going to walk through the blueprint together.
So, have you ever just stared at a really cool website and wondered, how? Seriously, how does a blank file on a computer become this interactive, useful thing? Well, it all starts with two core languages that work together basically like a perfect team.
And the best way to think about this team is to go back to that house analogy. First up, you've got HTML. That is your structure. We're talking the foundation, the walls, the roof, the bare bones. Then you bring in CSS. That's all the style, the paint color, the furniture, all the decorations that actually make the house feel like a home.
So, just like any good building project, you gotta start with the blueprint. Let's really dig into these two languages and get a handle on what each one's job is.
Okay, first, we have HTML, which is short for Hypertext Markup Language. This is the absolute skeleton of our web page. Its only job is to give everything structure. It tells the web browser what everything is. It says, hey, this chunk of text is a title, that over there is a paragraph, and this is an image. It creates the basic raw form of all your content.
And then you've got CSS, or cascading style sheets. So if HTML is the skeleton, CSS is, well, it's the personality. It's the clothes, the haircut, the style. It takes that raw HTML structure and tells the browser how everything should look. What color should the text be? How big is that heading? Where on the page does this photo actually go? That's all CSS.
All right, time to put on our hard hats. We can't even think about painting the walls until we've actually built them. So let's start with pure HTML and see how we create that basic structure. So the most basic piece of HTML is something called a tag. Just think of tags as little instructions for the web browser. They almost always come in pairs. You've got an opening tag to start the instruction and a closing tag to end it. And your content? You just sandwich it right in between them. That's literally how you tell the browser, hey, everything in here is a paragraph.
And if you look at some of the most common tags, you'll see just how simple these building blocks are. You've got H1 for a big main heading. You use P for a paragraph. These are like the bricks and the 2x4s of our web house. They're super simple, totally essential, and you combine them to build something way bigger.
So let's see it in action, right? If we want a big title on our page, this is the exact line of code we'd write. See, you've got your opening H1 tag, then your text, and then the closing H1 tag. It's really that straightforward. And boom, this is what the browser actually shows you. It reads that little instruction we wrote and turns it into a big, bold heading. That's the whole game right there. You write the code, and the browser does the work of making it look like something. But let's be real. A house that's just a box of walls isn't very useful, is it? You need doors to get from room to room, and you need windows to see outside. For websites, that means we need to make our page interactive. Let's see how we add those key features. So our door to other places on the web is the hyperlink. To make one, we use an A tag, which stands for anchor. And that little href part, that's the most important piece. It's the address that we want our door to open to. In this case, we're pointing it to google.com. And just like that, the browser turns our code into that classic blue clickable link that we all recognize instantly. We just installed a working doorway in our house that can take you anywhere else on the internet. Pretty cool. What about hanging a picture on the wall? Easy. For that, we use the image tag. That src, which just means source, tells the browser where to find the picture file. And that alt text is super important too. It's a little description for screen readers or for when the image just doesn't load for some reason. Okay, our house is built. It's got walls, it's got doors, we've even hung up a picture. It works, but it's pretty plain, right? Now for the fun part. Let's start decorating. Time to bring in CSS and give this place some real style. Now there are a few ways to add CSS. You could, for example, stick styles right onto a single HTML tag, or you could write them inside the HTML file itself. But honestly, the best and most common way to do it is to use a totally separate external file. Think of it like having a separate blueprint just for your interior design. It keeps everything neat, organized, and way easier to manage. And this slide right here, this shows you the true power of CSS. I mean, just look at that difference. On the left, you have our plain HTML. It's functional, but it's boring. Then on the right, after just a few lines of CSS, the whole page is transformed.
The background has color, the text is centered. It suddenly looks like someone actually designed it. That is the power of style.
So we've laid our foundation with HTML, and we've decorated all the rooms with CSS. Now let's just take a step back and look at our finished web house and put all these pieces together.
It all comes back to that really simple but really powerful idea we started with, and the source material puts it perfectly. HTML adds the structure to a web page, and CSS is like the decorations, the design, and all the colors.
And here's the most important takeaway. This partnership isn't just for making simple websites. This is the fundamental engine of the entire web. Every single website you use every day, from your social media feeds to huge news sites to online stores, is built on this exact same partnership. HTML gives it structure, and CSS gives it style.
So in the end, every single website is just a house built from the same simple blocks we've looked at today. Now you have the blueprint. So the only question left is, what are you going to build?